Who raised y'all? Hi, my name is Reese Waters, and welcome to the latest installment of Who Raised Y'all, honoring those that are doing their very special part in order to make our society worse. You know, the kind of people that will be asking to speak to the manager at the pearly gates. Now, I have mentioned MAGA's poor comprehension skills before.
If we need illegal aliens to do the jobs Americans won't do, who did all these jobs before we had illegal aliens?
In fact, literally everyone has noticed MAGA's poor comprehension skills before.
This show tonight has all the earmarks of Russian propaganda.
But this is something entirely else. MAGA's biggest troll, No, I said troll. Troll, yeah, like, no, not like online troll. Like, I think she lives under a bridge. MAGA's biggest troll made a big stink about unearthing Tim Walz's long lost brother, who apparently is a Florida man. And by that, I mean a Trump-loving MAGA nut job. Now here is where I gave MAGA way too much credit. I thought, surely they won't want to open up that can of worms. I mean, anybody with an operable brain would look at this and say, I don't think we want to be talking about families. You know, maybe that isn't fertile ground for us. But then again, I thought the same thing when it came to the military and Tim Walz, considering Trump's, history. But yet, that's right where they decide to go with it. Who is it that's going to protect MAGA from the slowest among them? Donald Trump himself thanked Jeff Walz for a purported endorsement, saying, "Thank you very much, Jeff. It is a great honor to have your endorsement. I look forward to meeting you soon." The post also featured a photo of people in Walz's for Trump t-shirts. And as for that whole Jeff Walz endorsement that Trump was touting, it stems from posts that Jeff published on Facebook saying he opposed his brother's ideology and claimed to have stories that he could tell that would show his brother Tim is not the type of character you want making decisions about your future. It certainly sounded salacious, but Jeff Walz, who donated to Trump's 2016 campaign and said that he's had minimal contact with his brother over the last 8 years, later told News Nation that he regrets the post and doesn't want to be involved in the race. Oh, well, he should be right at home at MAGA. Now I see why Trump appreciated him, because the kind of man that would question if Kamala Harris is black and then stand up there at a debate saying, I don't care, it don't matter to me what she is, should really appreciate a man who threw this out there about his own brother, then claims he don't want to be involved in the race. I mean, even a used car salesman would be proud of that bait and switch. And by the way, those stories about their younger years that he was prepared to tell, quote, nobody wanted to sit with him because he had car sickness and would always throw up on us. That sort of thing. There's really nothing else hidden behind there. People are assuming something else. There's other stories like that, but I think that gives you the gist of it. Yeah. I think I got the gist of it. This is all time that none of us will ever get back. I think I got the gist of it. And now I understand why you didn't want to be involved in the race, because even you realize after you press send, I have absolutely nothing to say. I would also add that by omission, if those are the stories, if those are the destructive stories that you have about Tim Walz, is him having car sickness, sign me up. Not to mention, Tim Walz says he doesn't even recognize the people that are wearing the Nebraska Walz's for Trump t-shirts in a photo that's making the rounds on social media. It turns out that they're distant cousins. Now, here's the part where a normal person would just take the L and keep it moving. You know, a normal person would just say, oh, this one went bad. We tried. It went horrifically wrong, but we lived to troll another day. Well, the picture of the Walzes stumping for Trump went viral in Maga land, because of course it is. Remember how I opened this whole video about MAGA's poor comprehension skills. Even Malik Obama decided to weigh in, and really it's too bad he doesn't qualify for a black job, because he certainly needs one. He always out here trying to get involved in this stuff. So Tim Walz has a bunch of family that bleed red. Now, exactly how does that work? That he has the distant cousins that are MAGA. Does that make Tim Walz a Republican, or does Tim Walz make them Democrat? Like, explain to me how this works, MAGA. I'm trying to figure out. In fact, I'm sure all of you guys that are posting this kind of stuff on social media, you guys all have Democrats in your family. So does that make y'all sellouts? Like, I'm trying to think, like, whose power trumps the other one? You know what I mean? Like, do you having Democrats in your family make all of the things that are coming out of your mouth hypocritical and nonsense? Like, y'all have to help me with this. And by the way, didn't y'all learn the last time that you decided to pick on Tim Walz's family?
I'm reporting on the very last day of the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, Illinois, and I feel like the entire week I've been very demure, very mindful, very cutesy, but ever since I saw Ian Coulter say this about Tim Walz's son who is disabled, I'm gonna say fuck that shit. It's all out of the window. Man, fuck you, Ann. Don't nobody give a fuck about a woman who died 10 years ago and is decomposing and still dyes her hair with peroxide in the motherfucking sink. What the fuck do you know about raising children, okay? Childless monkey women for Trump. That's exactly what you are, because you look like the Wicked Witch of the motherfucking West and need to throw water on your ass and make you melt. We are tired of this shit. And as Michelle Obama said earlier this week, we're no longer going high when y'all go low. We're gonna drag your big ass to hell where your unseasoned succubus ass belongs. Fuck you.
And you know, MAGA tried the exact same thing with Judge Merchan's daughter. Y'all remember that?
The thing that the president is prevented from saying, which is a disgrace, is that every single person involved in this prosecution is practically a Democratic political operative. The judge inside, his daughter, is making millions of dollars running against Donald Trump, raising money for Donald Trump's political opponents.
Just so I'm clear, so it is improper for Judge Merchan's daughter, in order to be a full citizen of the United States and work with her own personal political preference, that's wrong, but it's perfectly fine for the judge himself in the case of Clarence Thomas, who sits on the Supreme Court. It's perfectly okay for Clarence Thomas to accept gifts to do the work on behalf of Harlan Crow and his right-wing donors.
Clarence Thomas must resign.
I'm just a civil servant.
And if he doesn't, well, if there was ever a case to impeach a Supreme Court justice, this is it. For years, Thomas failed to disclose flights on private jets, super yacht trips, and stays at resorts he received as gifts from a Republican megadonor. Even though the Supreme Court has no legally binding code of ethics, and justices remain among the least accountable people in our government, legal experts claim that Thomas violated federal disclosure laws when he failed to report the free travel he was gifted. But at the very least, he's violated the public's trust and corruptly exploited his position of power to subsidize a life of luxury. Enough is enough. Supreme Court justices clearly can't be trusted to police themselves, and Chief Justice Roberts has shown little interest in holding justices to account for numerous conflicts of interest. The Supreme Court is facing a serious legitimacy crisis, and failing to hold Thomas accountable will only make it worse.
So it's okay for the judge's wife to get involved in activism, but just not the judge's daughter. Is that where we're going with? Okay, I'm trying to understand. And by the way, no, Justice Roberts, I didn't forget about your wife neither.
So Brian Fallon, here's the problem. Again, we don't know what we don't know. So a lot of this is covering the public's perception of the court. But here's what we're not going to do, at least here. We're not going to cover any more Supreme Court justices who give speeches bemoaning the 7% of Americans who trust them when they continue to ignore and defy all the laws of gravity about what makes any institution untrustworthy. It is a lack of transparency. It is this ruse that you can somehow police yourself, investigate your own leaks. It is this idea that you are above the law, which is how they all act. And it is this idea that they are this body that can say things before another branch of government, the Congress, that have no resemblance to what they do in their branch of government, the judiciary.
I want to ask you very quickly about another subject, too. There was a secret recording made at a meeting where many Supreme Court justices and their spouses were. And Martha Ann Alito, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito, was discussing how she feels about apparently a pride flag that was flown not far from her house. Listen.
I want a Sacred Heart of Jesus flag because I have to look across the lagoon at the pride flag for the next month.
Exactly.
And he's like, oh, please don't put up a flag. I said, I won't do it because I'm deferring to you. But when you are free of this nonsense, I'm putting it up and I'm going to send them a message every day.
And since we're talking about families, y'all want to talk about J.D. Vance? I mean, his family was so problematic, he wrote a book about it. That's the only way that we even know who he is. Are you sure you want to open that can of worms? I believe that book was sponsored by Perk 30s. Now, here's where me as a normal human being would think, well, surely they don't want to go too far down the road of talking about families. I mean, President Trump's own nephew just wrote a book where he accused him of racism and dropping ends. The man's nephew is not just a Democrat. He's not just voting for Kamala. He said he's a whole racist and drops in.
I was in the Oval Office 12 times and that was our mission, to advocate for people with complex disabilities. It culminated in May of 2020. In the Oval Office, Donald was there, and he was very gracious. Several other folks were there, including the group that we brought down. We dispersed. I was asked to go back and see Donald. He greeted me with his familiar, hey, pal, how's it going? We sat down for a bit, and he just came out with, these people, all the expenses, they should just die. He's talking about human beings who have complex issues, and the first thing he could say was, they should just die.
Fred claims this wasn't isolated, describing a phone call to alert his uncle the medical fund set up by the family for his son William was running low, a fund he says the former president consistently replenished.
A couple of years ago, I called him. I said, Donald, the fund's running out. And without hesitation, he said, your son doesn't recognize you. Let him die and move to Florida.
Were you surprised?
That's a great question. My response was, no, Donald, he does recognize me, and said, well, thanks, and hung up. Was I surprised? I don't think you could hear something like that and not be surprised. But that is what he has become. It's sad.
There's a chapter that you write about called the race card. What's that about?
I was about 10 years old, and I was at my grandparents' house, like I was a lot. And Donald, I could hear him screaming. And I went down to the driveway of my grandparents' house, and there was his white Eldorado convertible with 2 slashes. Still remember it. And he had electrical tape because the roof was black. And he used the N-word twice, just saying who he thought probably had done this.
You were 10 years old when these comments were allegedly uttered.
Right.
You sure you remember him that way?
Oh, absolutely.
He says he doesn't use the word.
Okay, he did twice that day.
And that only comes of the wings of President Trump's niece, Mary Trump, not dragging him every other week.
As many of you know, when it comes to Donald Trump, I think he's a loser.
What most people don't understand is that Donald Trump also thinks he's a loser. Not consciously, of course. This is something that he believes deep down. He knows on an unconscious level that he is absolutely nothing he claims to be. But he can't face that terrifying truth. Being a loser was literally the worst thing you could be in my family. So what does he do? He overcompensates by pretending and actually consciously believing that he is the greatest thing ever to happen. He thinks he's better than everybody else. He thinks he's more successful than everybody else. He thinks he's smarter than everybody else. None of that is true, of course. We know this because, on the one hand, he believes that he deserves to win, no matter what it is, whether it's a golf tournament or, I don't know, the presidency. And yet, he also thinks that he should be allowed to do absolutely anything he wants to be able to win. Winning isn't really the issue. It's just getting the W, right? Even if it's illegitimate. He can lie, he can cheat, he can steal. In 2016, he was more than happy to accept illegal Russian help to get him into the White House. In 2020, when he did lose, he couldn't face it, so he lied about it and perpetuated the big lie, which now almost all Republicans believe. Almost all Republicans believe that Donald won in 2020 when, obviously, Joe Biden beat him soundly. And now, in advance of the 2024 election, Donald is already trying to pre-rig the results. How? By telling anybody who will listen that if he loses, it's because the Democrats cheated. We just found out that Russian operatives are spending millions of dollars on right-wing influencers to help them help Donald Trump steal this election. All of this is happening for one reason and one reason alone. Donald Trump knows he cannot win on his own because he knows as well as we do that he is a loser.
So help me with the math, Maga. I'm just trying to understand this. So your presidential nominee himself having family that will drag him for filth is not significant. Justice Thomas and Justice Roberts' activism in impropriety is not significant. The activism work of their wives is not significant. But you want to holler at me about Jeff Walz? Who raised y'all? If we want to talk about vice presidents, I got one for you.
Come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year. Look, I'm incredibly proud of the record of our administration. It was a conservative record that made America more prosperous, more secure, and saw conservatives appointed to our course in a more peaceful world. But that being said, during my presidential campaign, I made it clear that there were profound differences between me and President Trump on a range of issues, and not just our difference on my constitutional duties that I exercised on January the 6th. I mean, as I have watched his candidacy unfold, I've seen him walking away from our commitment to confronting the national debt. I've seen him starting to shy away from a commitment to the sanctity of human life. And this last week, his reversal on getting tough on China and supporting our administration's effort to force a sale of ByteDance TikTok.
Why do you think he did that? Why do you think he had that reversal on that before we go, sir?
Well, I can't speculate on it, but what I can tell you is that in each of these cases, Donald Trump is pursuing and articulating an agenda that is at odds with the conservative agenda that we governed on during our 4 years. And that's why I cannot, in good conscience, endorse Donald Trump in this campaign.
Well, you know, family doesn't always know all the ins and outs of things that happen in your professional life. Your vice president would. How about the fact that Mike Pence won't endorse your ticket?
Come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
So you want to brush past that Mike Pence isn't on board, but want to holler at me about what Jeff Walz thinks? Oh, well, you know, Mike Pence is just one man. How about the 40 top cabinet members that will not endorse President Trump this cycle? That's not significant, but you want to holler at me about the Waltzes for Trump picture? How about the Republicans for Harris list? There's a whole movement called Republicans for Harris. We don't have to bother with family. We have actual members of Congress and people in key political positions, registered Republicans that are with her. And you want to holler at me about a Waltzes for Trump photo. Is that what's happening? Oh, you know what? Snap, I forgot. Y'all were talking about Tim Walz, and here I am dragging your actual presidential nominee for filth, and Tim Walz isn't even running against President Trump. Let's see what Kamala's family's talking about.
I so wish that mommy could be here tonight. I can just see her smiling, saying how proud she is of Kamala. And then, without missing a beat, she say, that's enough, you got work to do. She would tell all of us to roll up our sleeves and get to work, to elect a leader who sees the potential in each of us, a leader who cares for all of us, a leader who fights for every one of us. Our Democratic nominee, my big sister, the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
No, that's not gonna help you. No, that is not gonna help you. You know what? Let's see what JD Vance is up to.
What can we do about lowering the cost of daycare? Hayden, obviously a working family, and it's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
You know, such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that you know, maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare. Now, you talk about just daycare. Let's say you don't have somebody who can provide that extra set of hands.
Yeah, that's looking bad too. That is looking bad too. You know what? This has gone so poorly. Why don't y'all start a fight amongst each other? You got to distract you. Hey, Loomer, attack Marjorie Taylor Greene. Remember when you destroyed your family so you could have sex with a Zangief cosplayer? Who's writing her stuff? Tell me again how you and the Arby's in your pants are representatives of the GOP. What am I supposed to do with that? Huh? Oh, you know we're going to have to talk about that. But congratulations to you, Laura Loomer, and all of your Maga sycophants along with you, and Jeff Walz, and everybody else who's in that picture. Who raised y'all?